Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, I invite you to rest, to let your shoulders soften and your breath grow slow and steady. Wherever you are, whether you're lying down or settling into your favorite chair, this is a space for quiet. A space where time drifts like snow and stories unfold at a gentle pace. This journey will take you to Yakutsk, a city nestled deep in the heart of Siberia. It is one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth, where the air turns to ice and silence becomes a way of life. Together we will walk through frozen streets and snow-laden forests. We will sit beside warm stoves and listen to the voices of those who call this place home. This is a story told not in urgency but in stillness. If you find comfort in these quiet explorations, I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It helps others find their way here too. And if there's a place or time in history you would like to visit next, leave a comment below. I would love to hear what dreams or questions you carry. Now take a deep breath. Let it fill your chest and let it leave slowly. There is nowhere else to be. Nothing to rush. Just this moment. Just this story. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Arrival and First Impressions. There is a kind of silence that only deep winter can offer. Not the stillness of a quiet room or the hush before a storm, but a silence that hangs in the air like frost. A silence so complete that even the sound of your own breath feels like an intrusion. This is the sound that greets you when you step out of the plane in Yakutsk, a city so far from the familiar rhythms of the world that it feels almost suspended in time. It lies deep within the Sakha Republic in eastern Siberia, nestled along the Lena River, surrounded by forests that stretch endlessly in every direction. This is not just a cold place. This is one of the coldest inhabited cities on Earth. You notice it first not with your skin, but with your lungs. The air moves slowly here, heavy and brittle, almost reluctant to enter your body. As you inhale, the cold cuts sharply, not in a painful way, but with an intimacy that reminds you of its presence. Each breath is visible, a white cloud escaping into the stillness. The temperature hovers somewhere around -40 degrees Celsius. Yet the locals will tell you this is just an ordinary day. Nothing extreme. Not yet. The sky hangs low over the city, thick with the kind of light that never fully brightens. In this part of the world, winter stretches for months. The sun rises late and sets early, giving just a few pale hours of daylight before fading again into long darkness. You walk slowly from the small airport, where frost clings to the windows like lace, and make your way into the heart of Yakutsk. The roads are covered in packed snow, smoothed by the passage of vehicles and the steady tread of boots. Cars are everywhere, but most of them are parked with engines running. In Yakutsk, turning off your car in the winter is an invitation to disaster. Oil thickens, batteries freeze, and restarting an engine left cold for too long becomes a gamble not worth taking, so the engines hum softly in the background, a gentle chorus of survival. As you walk through the streets, the buildings appear almost sleepy. Many are old Soviet-era apartment blocks, solid and square, their facades faded by time and frost. Between them stand wooden houses painted in colors that seem to defy the winter. Shades of mint green, soft blue, deep red, and mustard yellow. Their windows are triple glazed, sometimes with plastic sheeting inside, and nearly always rimmed with ice on the outside. Smoke rises from chimneys in narrow plumes, curling upward until it meets the frozen air and drifts sideways, tracing quiet lines across the gray sky. People walk briskly, but not hurriedly. They are wrapped in layers of thick clothing, parkas lined with fur, boots reaching high up the calves, gloves that disappear into sleeves. Most wear fur-lined hoods that form a circle of warmth around their faces. Scarves are tied high, covering the mouth and nose, leaving only the eyes visible. Even those are often hidden behind fogged glasses or goggles. The locals do not complain. They move with the ease of people who have always known this kind of life. Children trudge beside parents, bundled like little statues. Even the dogs, shaggy and quiet, seem to accept the cold without resistance. The city itself feels built for endurance. Every detail, from the way doors are double-layered to the way sidewalks are cleared daily, speaks of a place that has learned how to coexist with cold rather than fight against it. You see trucks delivering loads of firewood to older homes, their tires crunching over frozen gravel. Nearby, a vendor stands at a wooden stall, selling frozen fish displayed like artwork, each one stiff and glassy-eyed, preserved by the air alone. No icebox needed. The city is its own freezer. As you wander further, you begin to notice the subtle rhythm of life here. Despite the cold, there is movement. A group of teenagers laugh as they emerge from a school, their voices muffled but unmistakably joyful. An elderly woman, her face weathered and kind, sweeps the front steps of her home, her broom tapping gently against the wood. A man in a thick coat adjusts a sign outside a small grocery store, his breath rising like steam. Life here does not retreat, it simply adapts. You stop for a moment near the river. The Lena, wide and powerful in warmer months, is now a frozen highway of white. Snowmobiles sit quietly along the edge, their engines silent. In the distance, across the ice, you can just make out the outline of another village. The horizon seems farther away than usual, as if the cold has stretched the landscape somehow. Even the trees, tall and leafless, seem to lean slightly under the weight of winter. Inside a nearby cafe, the warmth is almost startling. The windows are fogged with condensation, and coats hang thickly on hooks by the door. The smell of sweet bread and boiled meat fills the air. You order something simple, a bowl of solyanka, a rich, savory soup that warms you from the inside out. Around you, voices murmur in Russian and Saka, the indigenous language of the region. You hear laughter, the clink of spoons against porcelain, the hum of a small radio in the kitchen. In this tiny room, the cold feels distant, almost forgotten. Outside once more, the light has begun to shift. Evening comes early here. The sun never climbs high, and now it dips low, casting long shadows across the snow. The sky takes on a soft blue hue, tinged with lavender and faint orange near the edges. The temperature drops further. You feel it on your eyelashes, where moisture gathers and begins to crystallize. You feel it in your fingertips, even through your gloves. But you also feel a strange sense of calm. There is a beauty in this place that does not reveal itself easily. It hides behind layers not just of clothing, but of silence and cold and history. Yakutsk is not a city that offers quick comfort. It asks you to slow down, to observe, to listen. It asks you to accept that life here moves differently. Not slower exactly, but with intention, with care, with a kind of quiet determination that runs deeper than words. You walk back toward your lodging as darkness settles fully over the city. The streetlights glow faintly through the frost, casting pools of orange on the snow. A dog barks once in the distance. Somewhere nearby, a door opens and closes, releasing a gust of warmth that vanishes almost instantly into the night. The stars begin to emerge, faint pinpricks above the drifting mist. You breathe slowly, the air sharp and pure. There is no traffic, no rush, just the sound of your footsteps and the distant hum of a city wrapped in winter's arms. As you slip inside and remove your heavy layers, you realize that you are not cold in the way you expected. You are not chilled to the bone or numbed by wind. Instead, you feel something else, a kind of respect. For the people who live here, for the land that holds them, and for the cold itself, which has shaped this place into something rare and enduring. You settle near a window, warm drink in hand, watching frost slowly reclaim the glass. Outside, the city continues its quiet rhythm, and you, a visitor from a different kind of world, begin to understand why someone might choose to call this place home. Chapter 2: A Walk Through Morning Streets. The morning begins long before the sun arrives. In Yakutsk, winter mornings are not marked by golden rays spilling across the floor or by birdsong drifting through open windows. Instead, they arrive slowly, cautiously, with a pale graying of the sky and the quiet shifting of life beneath layers of cold. The light that comes is not warm. It is diffused and distant, more suggestion than presence. But in this city, that is enough. You dress in stages. Everything here requires preparation, and stepping outside is no exception. Thick socks first, then insulated boots. Thermal layers under wool. A heavy coat lined with fur, large enough to hold the heat you generate. A scarf wrapped carefully around your nose and mouth, high enough to cover your cheeks. Gloves, then mittens. A hat pulled low, followed by a hood drawn tight. Only your eyes remain uncovered, peering out from a frame of wool and frost. By the time you step out into the early hour, you are no longer a single body. You are a bundle of survival. The door opens with a soft creak, and the cold greets you like a wall. Not with wind, not with movement, but with weight. It presses against your chest and wraps around your limbs. You do not speak. Breath becomes fog the moment it escapes your lips, and even words feel too warm for this air. So you begin to walk in silence. The streets are quiet, but not empty. Snow covers every surface, though it is not fresh. It has not snowed in days, perhaps weeks, but the cold preserves it perfectly. The snow here is not soft and powdery. It is dense and dry, packed hard by the steady rhythm of footsteps and tires. It does not melt or slush. It holds its form, unchanging, waiting for the brief thaw of spring. You walk past houses tucked low to the ground, each one different, yet unified by their purpose. Thick wooden walls, many painted in fading colors, sit under steep roofs designed to shed snow. Frost climbs the window panes, forming delicate patterns like veins in old paper. The glass is triple layered, sometimes quadrupled, and still, ice finds a way to settle on the inner edges. Smoke rises from chimneys in slender ribbons, twisting upward before bending under the weight of the air. It is the only thing that moves freely here, the only sign that warmth is being made somewhere inside. Along the street, the lamps are still lit. Their yellow glow falls across the snow in soft pools, illuminating footprints, tire tracks, and the fine layer of frost that clings to every exposed surface. The light does not reach far. It feels contained, as if the darkness has thickened around it, refusing to give up its hold on the morning. You pass by a man tending to his car. He wears a thick hat with flaps that cover his ears, and his breath comes in steady bursts as he moves with practiced efficiency. The engine has been idling for nearly an hour, its soft growl a sign of foresight. In Yakutsk, cars are kept alive through motion and heat. Battery warmers and engine blankets are common. Some vehicles are kept in heated garages, but many are not. Here, starting a cold engine is not a guarantee. It is a risk avoided with effort and patience. The man nods as you pass, a silent greeting. You nod in return. No words are exchanged. There is an understanding here, a shared knowledge that small gestures speak louder than anything else in the cold. You continue walking, the snow crunching beneath your boots, the sound sharp and familiar. In the distance, the faint buzz of activity grows. A small truck drives slowly down the street, carrying blocks of ice harvested from the Lena River. These blocks are stored for use throughout the winter, melted indoors for drinking, washing, and cooking. Pipes are unreliable in these conditions. Water freezes inside them, expands, and breaks the metal. So the people here work around that. They do not rely on modern infrastructure to carry them through the coldest weeks. They rely on tradition, on what has always worked. You reach a small bakery nestled between two larger buildings. Its windows are fogged and warmth spills from the doorway each time it opens. Inside, the scent of fresh bread fills the air. Rye, black wheat, and sweet pastries filled with jam or cheese. A few people stand in line, shoulders hunched against the cold, their gloved hands clutching small bills or coins. The owner, a woman with kind eyes and cheeks pink from the oven's heat, moves behind the counter with grace and speed. Her face is uncovered, but her sleeves are thick, and her hands are wrapped in wool mitts with the fingers cut off. You buy a small loaf, still warm, and wrap it in cloth. The heat seeps into your gloves, a brief but welcome touch of comfort. Outside again, you continue walking. The bread warms your hands, and the steam from it clouds your glasses. Further down the street, the sound of children's voices breaks the silence. A group of them are making their way to school, backpacks bouncing, boots kicking up small clouds of snow. Their coats are bright, red, blue, yellow, small bursts of color against the endless white. They chatter in a mix of Russian and Saka, the syllables quick and light. One child slips and falls, but laughs as they get up, brushing snow from their knees. Their breath hangs in the air like smoke. The school looms at the end of the street, its windows glowing with the promise of warmth. Here in Yakutsk, schools only close when temperatures fall below minus 52 degrees Celsius. Until then, children attend as usual. The cold is not a reason to stop. It is a condition to be managed. You pause as the last of the children enter, and the door swings shut behind them. The building settles back into quiet, its walls thick and steady. Across the street, a dog sleeps curled into a shallow depression in the snow, its fur fluffed and thick. It stirs as you pass, but does not rise. Animals here are as adapted as the people. They conserve energy, move sparingly, and know the difference between curiosity and necessity. The sky above has shifted again. The pale blue of early morning is deepening, tinged with a kind of silver. The sun, though low, finally breaks through the thin clouds. It casts long shadows across the snow, turning every footprint into a dark impression. The light is not warm, but it is beautiful. It glints off the ice crystals that coat every surface, making rooftops sparkle and trees shimmer. You turn down a narrow side street where the snow is less disturbed. The air feels even colder here, untouched by car engines or foot traffic. Each breath feels deeper, crisper, and your steps leave clean prints behind you. A crow watches from a telephone wire, its feathers puffed and dark against the pale sky. It caws once, a sharp sound that echoes briefly before fading. As you walk, you begin to understand the shape of life here. Not in the details, not in the facts, but in the feeling. Yakutsk does not move quickly. It does not pretend to be comfortable or easy. It demands respect. And in return, it offers something rare, a chance to experience a way of living that honors the land, the season, and the quiet strength of endurance. Eventually, you return to your lodging. The door closes behind you with a gentle thud, and the warmth inside wraps around you like a blanket. You remove each layer slowly, carefully, allowing your body to adjust. The bread you bought now rests on the table, its scent still rich and earthy. You pour a cup of tea, sit by the window, and watch as the morning continues outside. People pass, bundled and quiet, each one part of the rhythm that keeps this city alive. The cold does not stop them. It shapes them, guides them, becomes part of their days without ever fully defining them. And you, still a visitor, find yourself moving a little slower. Not because of the cold, but because there is something worth noticing in every step, in every breath, in every soft sound that breaks the silence. Chapter 3. Homes and Warmth. There is something different about warmth in a place like Yakutsk. It is not the background comfort most people take for granted, not a passive state you return to without thought. Here, warmth is made. It is earned, built, maintained. It is kept alive with care, like a fire that must be watched or it will slip away into the deep cold. Inside these homes, every bit of heat has a story. The first thing you notice when you step through the doorway of a Yakutsk home is the sudden quiet. The wind disappears. The air softens. The layers between you and the world outside begin to fall away, one by one. Gloves, scarf, hood, coat, boots. Each is removed carefully and set aside. The transition from outside to inside is more than physical. It feels like entering a different season, a separate world carved out of the frozen landscape. The floors are often wooden, sometimes with thick rugs laid down in warm, earthy colors. The boards creak gently underfoot, softened by age. Walls are covered with family photos, small tapestries, calendars, and coats hanging in neat rows. A warm smell greets you, a mix of wood smoke, cooked cabbage, tea leaves, and bread. Not a strong scent, but deep and lived in, like the memory of many winters wrapped into one. The main source of heat in many homes is the stove. Not the sleek electric kind, but a heavy iron structure that burns wood or coal. It stands quietly in the corner, radiating slow, patient warmth. A pot of soup may be simmering on top, or a kettle of water kept warm for tea. You can feel the heat even from across the room, not as a sharp blast, but as a steady presence that fills the space. In newer apartments, central heating hums quietly through radiators pushed through the walls by municipal systems designed to withstand the deep freeze. But even in those spaces, the windows are thick with insulation. Double and triple panes are lined with extra plastic, sometimes covered with heavy curtains. Sealing out the cold is not optional. It is part of the routine, part of the structure of daily life. Many homes still keep an emergency stove or heater, even if the apartment is heated. Everyone here knows the risks. Systems can fail. Storms can come. Temperatures can fall lower than expected. Having an extra heat source is not an afterthought. It is insurance, and it is common sense. You are invited to sit in the kitchen, the warmest room in most homes. The stove is nearby, and the table is covered with a cloth. Simple, well-used dishes rest on its surface. Ceramic bowls, spoons with wooden handles, a small tray with sliced black bread and pickles. A teapot sits nearby, wrapped in a cloth to keep it warm. The tea is strong and slightly smoky, poured into small glasses set in metal holders. The steam curls upward as you lift it to your lips. It is not just a drink. It is a comfort, a pause, a way to thaw both body and spirit. Conversation here moves slowly. Words are not rushed. People speak with a softness that matches the quiet outside. They ask where you are from, how you like the cold, if you've seen the Lena River frozen all the way across. There is pride in these questions, but not boastfulness. Just a calm assurance that their home is worth knowing. One woman shows you the quilts she's sewn, each square a memory of fabric worn and repurposed. Another offers slices of frozen fish, caught in summer and preserved by the air itself. The pieces are translucent, almost like ice. They melt on the tongue with a burst of salt and history. She smiles as you try it, nodding in approval. Food here is not about abundance. It is about sustenance, and it is given freely. Children move between rooms, playing with wooden blocks, drawing with stubby pencils, watching old cartoons in muted tones on a small television. A cat sleeps by the stove, curled tightly, its breath barely visible in the warm air. You notice how everyone wears thick socks indoors and how doors are opened quickly, closed just as fast to keep the warmth inside. Even the smallest habit feels shaped by the cold. As the afternoon passes, you learn about the layers hidden behind the walls. Some homes are built on stilts raised above the ground to avoid the damage of shifting permafrost. Others are insulated with sawdust, old newspapers, or foam board layered with care. Every crack is sealed, every window checked. The cold does not give second chances. Later, you are shown the woodpile. It is stacked neatly outside, covered with a tarp. Each log is cut to a precise length, dried and ready to burn. It is replenished regularly, and its size is a matter of quiet pride. You are told how much wood it takes to last a month, how many hours it takes to gather and chop enough for the season. You begin to understand that warmth is not just about heat. It is about labor, planning, and memory. You think about the homes you've known, where a thermostat controls the temperature and warmth comes at the push of a button. Here, it is different. Here, warmth is woven into life. It is in the clothes dried near the stove. It is in the blankets folded at the edge of the bed. It is in the hot soup, the shared tea, the hands wrapped around a mug. It is in the care people take to make each other comfortable. Even the silence is warm. As night approaches, the house dims. Lamps glow with soft light. The wind outside whispers against the walls, but the rooms remain still. Someone lights a candle in the hallway. A child is tucked under a thick blanket. The cat stretches, then curls again. You sit quietly in the kitchen, another cup of tea warming your hands, watching the fire flicker through the small door of the stove. Outside, the temperature has dropped again. Maybe it is -48 now. Maybe colder. But in here, the warmth holds steady. You begin to feel it not just on your skin, but in your bones, in your breath, in the slow rhythm of your thoughts. You feel safe, sheltered not just by walls and fire, but by the human effort that built this place and keeps it alive. The night deepens. Stars shine faintly beyond the frost-covered window. The world outside is white and silent. But inside, a small flame glows and the quiet is not empty. It is full of presence. You go to bed with thick blankets pulled up to your chin. The mattress is firm, the sheets a little cool at first, then warming slowly as your body settles. In the distance, you hear the last creak of a floorboard, the faint rustle of someone shifting in sleep. Then nothing. Only warmth and quiet and the slow breathing of a house at rest. Chapter 4: Food and Preparation. In the coldest reaches of the earth, food takes on new meaning. It is not simply sustenance or pleasure. It is preservation. It is memory. It is something that must be gathered, stored, protected, and made to last. In a place like Yakutsk, where winter can stretch for 8 months, where the ground freezes so hard it resists the shovel, every meal carries the quiet echo of preparation. The day begins in the kitchen. Not with the sound of alarms or hurried clatter, but with the soft shifting of firewood and the dull clink of metal pots. Someone rises early, as they always do, and places kindling in the stove. The fire, built the night before and fed slowly as the house cooled, is coaxed back to life. Heat grows slowly, radiating outward, pushing against the frost that creeps along the edges of the walls. The room begins to thaw, and the rhythm of morning takes shape. Bread is sliced. Black rye, dense and slightly sour, rests under a cotton cloth to keep it soft. Butter is brought from the cold room, not the refrigerator, but the small enclosed space near the back of the house where the air is cold but not freezing. Meat, dried in summer, hangs from the rafters in thin curled strips. It is chewy, strong, and full of flavor. It is meant to be chewed slowly, meant to last. Tea is prepared with care. Loose leaves, dark and fragrant, are steeped in a small metal pot. Water is boiled over the stove, sometimes drawn from melted ice, sometimes carried from a well. The tea is poured into simple glasses, set into brass holders to keep from burning the hands. A spoon of jam might be added, made from summer berries that grow in short bursts of warmth during the fleeting months of green. Lingonberries, black currants, sea buckthorn. each one a memory of sun. Breakfast is never rushed. People gather quietly. No phones, no screens. Just the clink of cutlery, the sound of the fire, and the soft murmur of conversation. Food is passed from hand to hand. A boiled egg, a few slices of cheese, a small bowl of millet porridge, warm and thick, topped with butter and sugar. There is no hurry. In this city, life does not run by the second hand. It moves by weather, by firelight, by the needs of the day. When the meal is done, plates are cleared, but there is no dishwasher. Dishes are washed in warm water heated on the stove, dried by hand, and stacked with care. Every action is deliberate. Every task, however small, fits into the larger rhythm of the day. Later, as midday approaches, thoughts turn toward the next meal. In some homes, this is a simple affair. A bowl of soup made the night before, reheated gently and served with bread and pickles. In others, the process begins anew. Root vegetables are peeled, their skins rough and mottled from months in storage. Onions are sliced, their smell strong in the warm air. A pot is filled with bones, brought from the freezer where they have rested since autumn. The soup will take hours to make. That is the point. Many dishes here begin with broth. Rich, hearty, full of marrow and thyme. Into this base go potatoes, cabbage, carrots, and sometimes dumplings, hand-rolled and filled with minced meat. There is no waste. Every part of the animal is used, every piece of the harvest put to work. Nothing is discarded lightly. Nothing is taken for granted. In the corners of the kitchen, jars line the shelves. Pickled cucumbers, tomatoes, garlic cloves, jams of every kind. Mushrooms soaked in brine, their shapes soft and pale. These were made in summer, sealed tight, and stored in anticipation of this very moment. Each jar is a promise kept, a bit of light saved from the season that passed. There is a particular pride in these collections. Not loud or showy, but quiet and deep. To preserve food is to care for the future. It is to say without words that what you gathered mattered, that the land gave, and you listened. That winter does not arrive uninvited. It arrives prepared for. Outside, the snow sits undisturbed. The sky is pale again, then light casting long shadows. A man walks past the window, pulling a sled, atop which rest several blocks of ice. These will be stored near the house and used gradually. Even in a city, nature remains close. People move between modern and traditional methods, choosing what works, what lasts. It is a balance, not a contradiction. In the afternoon, the market opens. You decide to visit. It is not a market in the usual sense, not rows of plastic and neon. It is simple and open, even in the cold. Vendors stand at wooden stalls or from the backs of trucks, bundled thickly, their faces barely visible. Some wear fur hats, others wear layers of scarves. All of them stand patiently, stamping their feet against the cold, hands tucked into sleeves or pockets. The goods are displayed openly. Whole fish, frozen solid, their skin glinting with ice. Slices of horse meat considered a delicacy in this region, neatly arranged and wrapped in plastic. Pelmeni, small dumplings, sold by the kilo. Berries frozen in bags. Honey in glass jars. A woman sells homemade butter wrapped in wax paper, the edges carefully folded. She smiles with her eyes, nods as you approach. You buy a few things. Some frozen mushrooms, a handful of pelmeni, a small bag of dried cranberries. They are handed over with quiet care. Money is exchanged quickly, hands touched briefly, then returned to pockets. There is no small talk. Not because people are unfriendly, but because the cold leaves little room for lingering. Back at the house, the kitchen warms again. The stove is stoked. Ingredients are set out. Someone hums an old song, softly, while slicing vegetables. The soup from earlier has grown thicker. Its scent fills the room. Outside, the light fades once more. Inside, the table is set. Dinner is a shared moment. A pot is placed in the center, bowls filled one by one. The soup is rich and dark. Pieces of meat fall from the bone. Potatoes melt against the spoon. Bread is passed. Butter spread. Pickles added for sharpness. A glass of tea. A glass of vodka for the elders. A toast, quiet and sincere. No phones ring. No screens flicker. Only firelight and conversation. Someone tells a story from last winter. Another recalls a summer spent in the forest. The children listen. The older ones smile. The younger ones begin to nod, full and sleepy. After the meal, leftovers are covered and placed near the window where the air is cool. The dishes are washed again, slowly. Water is heated. Hands are dried on thick towels. The stove is fed once more, its embers shifting. The cat returns to its spot. The house settles. In Yakutsk, food is not a passing thought. It is a practice, a ceremony of care. It holds people together. It warms the body, the air, and the time shared between walls. It is quiet. It is deliberate. And it endures, like everything else here. Chapter 5. Children and School Life. There is a quiet bravery in the way children move through winter in Yakutsk. Not the boldness of those who seek danger, but the steady resilience of those who grow up knowing cold as a constant companion. It begins early in life and shapes everything from the way they dress to the way they think. Here, children do not merely endure the cold, they grow with it, absorb it, and learn how to live within its quiet grip. The day begins while the sky is still dim. Frost covers the windows in fine lacework, and the world beyond the glass is a soft blur of white and blue. Inside the house, warmth clings to each room, held in place by thick walls, woolen rugs, and the slow breath of the stove. Children stir from their beds, eyes blinking open in the half-light, their faces still warm from sleep. There is no alarm, no rush, just the soft sound of movement, the rustle of blankets being pushed back, the creak of a wooden floor beneath small feet. Parents move through the rooms as well, lighting the stove if it has cooled, setting tea to boil, laying out socks and sweaters already warmed by the fire. Getting dressed is not a single act, but a careful layering. First, warm underclothes, thick socks, soft cotton against the skin. Then heavier garments, woolen sweaters, lined pants, padded jackets. The outer layer is the most important. Parkas filled with down, fur-lined hoods, mittens that reach to the elbows, boots that rise high on the calves. A scarf is wrapped around the face until only the eyes remain. It is a process done with practiced ease, repeated every morning for most of the year. Outside, the sky is pale and still. The temperature might be -40, -45, perhaps lower. Yet the streets slowly begin to fill with children, their boots crunching on snow packed hard by weeks of use. They walk in pairs, in small groups, sometimes with parents, more often alone. There is little fuss. No one complains. This is the way of things. School begins soon, and they are on their way. The school building stands quietly, its windows glowing with soft yellow light. Frost rims the glass, and smoke rises from chimneys at the roofline. Inside, the air is warm and filled with the quiet murmur of preparation. Coats are removed and hung on wide hooks. Boots are replaced with indoor shoes. Scarves, hats, and mittens are tucked neatly into cubbies. Children move through these rituals with quiet familiarity. In the classroom, desks are arranged in careful rows. The walls are decorated with maps, posters, student drawings, and winter-themed crafts. A globe sits on a shelf near the window. A radiator ticks gently beneath the sill. The teacher, dressed in layers like everyone else, greets the students with a nod, then begins the day's lesson. Subjects vary. Russian language, mathematics, history, geography. In some schools, classes are taught in both Russian and Sakha, the local language passed down through generations of the Yakut people. There is pride in this, in keeping the words of the land alive. Children recite poems and practice their writing, their voices steady and soft. There is no need to shout. The room listens. Outside, the sun rises slowly, never climbing high. Light moves across the snow like a quiet breath. A few children glance out the window, watching as the wind lifts fine powder from the rooftops. But their attention returns. They are used to the view. They know it well. At midday, a break is taken. The lunchroom smells of stewed vegetables, boiled potatoes, and fresh bread. Meals are simple and filling: porridge, soup, sometimes meat or fish. Children eat with quiet energy, sitting close together on benches, their trays balanced carefully in front of them. There is laughter, of course, and chatter, but it is gentle. A kind of mutual understanding passes between them, shaped by shared experience. After lunch, there may be recess. Even in the coldest weather, children are encouraged to go outside, if only for a short time. Movement is important. Breath must be drawn deep. So they bundle again, pulling on coats and boots, layering gloves over mittens. Outside, they run in wide circles, slide down packed snowbanks, chase each other between trees, and make quick shapes in the snow with mittened hands. Their cheeks flush red. Their laughter floats on the frozen air. No one lingers too long. After 15 or 20 minutes, they return to the warmth, their coats steaming slightly in the entranceway. Wet boots are set aside. Hands are rubbed together. Hot tea may be offered. Then the lessons continue, and the day moves on. In some classes, the older students study the history of their land. They learn about the first peoples to live here, those who fished the Lena River and hunted across the taiga long before roads or buildings or central heating. They read about explorers who came through the region, scientists who measured its cold, and poets who tried to describe it. They talk about climate and ecology, about the animals that live here, reindeer, foxes, owls, wolves, and how each survives the winter. They also learn about modern Yakutsk, how buildings are constructed on permafrost, why infrastructure must adapt, how local culture blends ancient traditions with contemporary life. They speak about the challenges of isolation, the short summers, the long cold, and the reasons people stay. The school day ends before the sun disappears, though not by much. Children dress again, layer upon layer, until they are bundled and ready. They spill back into the streets, their voices brighter now, feet moving a little faster. Some walk home. Others are met by parents, led quietly down the same paths they took that morning. At home, the stove is warm again. Tea is waiting. A snack is offered, perhaps a biscuit, a small bowl of soup, a slice of dark bread with jam. Homework is done by lamplight. Drawings are made. Stories are told. In some homes, a grandparent may share a tale from their own childhood, a time when winters were just as cold, but life was different. These stories are handed down like heirlooms, each one a thread in the fabric of this place. Later in the evening, children play quietly or help with chores. They feed the dog, bring in firewood, or carry a pail of water from outside. They move with the gentle rhythm of the household, their roles small but meaningful. They understand the routines that keep life turning. They live close to necessity. When bedtime comes, there is no protest. The cold tires everyone eventually. Children curl beneath thick quilts, their hair still faintly scented with smoke from the stove. Books are closed. Lights are dimmed. A mother hums softly, her voice low and steady. Outside, the stars return. The air thickens. The cold deepens. But inside, there is only quiet. In Yakutsk, childhood is not defined by entertainment or abundance. It is shaped by resilience, warmth, and connection. Children grow up knowing the strength of silence, the value of preparation, and the comfort of shared time. They know how to wait for spring. They know how to move through snow without complaint, and they know how to carry the memory of firelight with them, even when they step out into the dark. Chapter 6: The Market and Community. There are places in every city where the quiet rhythm of life gathers into something shared. In Yakutsk, one of those places is the market. It is not a grand hall of commerce or a row of neon-lit stores. It is open, humble, and woven into the daily routines of the people who live here. To visit the market is to walk through the city's memory, to feel its pulse, and to see how a community holds itself together in a land shaped by cold. You leave your home in the early light. The cold is sharper today, and the wind moves a little more boldly through the streets. The snow is firm underfoot, polished by footsteps and tires. Your breath curls ahead of you, a white ribbon in the air, and your coat hugs tightly around your frame. There is no need to check the temperature. Your face tells you all you need to know. It is cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes, but it is not too cold to move. The walk to the market is quiet. Here and there, others move along the same path. Faces are hidden behind scarves. Eyes peek out from fur-lined hoods. No one speaks loudly. No one rushes. There is a kind of mutual understanding in this shared silence, that the cold has its own sound, and it is best not to disturb it. The market appears gradually. First as a few scattered stalls, then as a line of small wooden structures, some enclosed, others open to the air. Trucks are parked nearby, their engines humming softly to stay alive. The stalls are simple, tables built from worn planks, boxes arranged carefully, signs handwritten in Russian and Saka. Each vendor has their space, marked not by flash or size, but by presence. They have been here for years, some for decades. You begin to walk the rows. There is no shouting, no music. Just the soft murmurs of buyers and sellers, the creak of snow under boots, the steady movements of hands exchanging goods. The air is filled with smells both faint and familiar, smoke from nearby chimneys, the faint tang of dried fish, the sharp sweetness of berries, and the quiet warmth of bread kept under cloth. At one stall, frozen fish are displayed in neat rows, their bodies stiff with cold, their silver scales catching the light. These are not kept on ice. They are preserved by the air itself. In this climate, refrigeration is unnecessary. Everything stays frozen from nature alone. You watch as a vendor, her breath rising in clouds, slices a fillet with practiced skill. The blade moves cleanly, her hands firm despite the cold. Further along you find meat, reindeer, horse, beef, cut and bundled, some wrapped in cloth, others sealed in plastic. The meat is dense and dark, carefully handled. Nothing is wasted. Nearby, a man stands behind a display of pelmeni, small dumplings filled with ground meat and onions, each one shaped by hand. He offers you a sample, lifting a frozen one to show the care in its fold. You nod, and he smiles with his eyes. At another table, a woman sells honey in glass jars. The honey is thick, nearly solid from the temperature, its golden color glowing faintly in the gray light. She speaks quietly, telling you where the hives are kept during the short summer, how the bees gather from wildflowers along the Lena River. You buy a small jar. She wraps it in paper and nods in thanks. There are berries, frozen in clusters, each one bright and round. Lingonberries, cloudberries, black currants. A few small sacks of dried cranberries, sweetened with a dusting of sugar. They crackle slightly when you bite into them, the cold sharp and pleasant on your tongue. And then there are the pickles. Jars stacked neatly, labeled in ink, the vegetables suspended in brine. Cucumbers, garlic, tomatoes, cabbage. Their colors muted by the cold, but still vibrant under the glass. You see sauerkraut, carrots with dill, and even mushrooms soaked in vinegar and herbs. These are not decorations. They are survival, stored sunlight from a season-long past. You walk slowly, your basket growing heavier with each step. Each item tells a story. Each jar and bundle carries the shape of someone's labor, someone's harvest, someone's memory of warmth and light. This market is not just a place of trade. It is a continuation of 1,000 small acts of care. Along one row, you find handmade goods, mittens knitted from thick wool, scarves dyed with natural pigments, carved wooden spoons and ladles, ceramic mugs painted with folk designs. A woman sits behind the table, her hands busy with thread and needle. She greets you with a soft hello and offers you a seat on a fur-covered bench. You sit for a moment, grateful for the pause, the shared heat of conversation. She tells you about her work, how each pair of mittens is shaped to keep fingers warm in -50, how the scarves are dyed with onion skins and birch bark, how the spoons are carved from larch, shaped to fit the hand, passed from parent to child. You pick one up. It is smooth, familiar in a way you cannot name. She smiles again, wraps it for you, and says something kind in Saka before returning to her stitching. You leave the market slowly. Not because there is more to buy, but because there is something grounding in its presence. The way people move, the way they speak, the way they share space without hurry. It reminds you that survival here is not solitary. It is shared, built from habits and rituals that draw people together, even in the coldest months. As you walk home, your basket full, the streets seem softer. Smoke curls from chimneys. Children walk by with cheeks red and eyes bright. Someone laughs, the sound brief but real. You hear the thud of firewood being stacked, the low hum of an engine kept warm, the creak of a door opening and closing quickly. At home, the stove is lit, and the air is warm. You unpack your basket slowly. The honey glows on the table. The berries are placed into a bowl. The fish is wrapped for dinner. Each item finds its place. Each thing, chosen with care, brings a bit of the city into your home. Later, you sit by the window. Outside, the market has closed. The stalls stand empty now, waiting for morning. But their presence lingers like footprints in the snow. You sip tea, warm in your hands, and think of the people you met. Not by name, perhaps, but by face, by gesture, by the quiet kindness they offered. In Yakutsk, community is not always loud. It is not paraded or forced. It is built in soft greetings, steady hands, and shared weather. It is felt in the steam of a soup pot, in the offer of mittens, in the smile of someone who knows the cold as you do. It does not ask for thanks. It only asks to be part of your day. Chapter 7. Surviving the Cold. There is cold, and then there is the kind of cold that reshapes the way you live. The kind that does not simply linger in the background, but becomes the foundation upon which every habit, every structure, every decision is built. In Yakutsk, cold is not a season. It is a permanent presence, a force to be acknowledged, measured, and respected. To survive here is not to conquer it, but to learn how to live alongside it with humility and care. The cold settles over the city like a long breath held through the months of darkness. It moves without sound, without force, but with complete certainty. When the air drops to -50 degrees Celsius, when even breath begins to sting the lungs and frost grows thick on eyelashes, you begin to feel it not just on your skin, but somewhere deeper. It is not pain. It is not fear. It is awareness. There are things you do not do in this kind of cold. You do not rush outside without proper preparation. You do not leave skin uncovered. You do not assume your car will start without effort. The city itself knows these rules. It has grown around them. Every home is built with insulation in mind. Double doors at every entryway. Triple-paned windows with added ceiling. Walls stuffed with natural and synthetic barriers. Curtains drawn tightly at night to keep warmth from drifting away. Floors covered with rugs. Pipes heated and wrapped. Radiators checked often. In many homes, the wood-burning stove remains in use, even if modern heating exists. It is a backup, a tradition, and a comfort. Dressing to go outside is more than a matter of fashion. It is a system. First, thermal underlayers, not cotton, which holds moisture, but wool or synthetic fabrics that wick and warm. Then padded pants, thick socks, tall boots, a fleece or wool middle layer, a parka, heavy and long, lined with goose down or fur, gloves inside mittens, a hat that covers the ears, a scarf wrapped high, hoods drawn low. Only the eyes remain, blinking slowly behind fogged glasses. Even in this, there is variation. The older generation wears reindeer fur boots, handmade with care, the soles sewn with sinew. Some carry small pieces of felt to place under their feet while waiting at bus stops standing in the market. Others keep chemical warmers in their pockets, small packets that offer hours of steady heat. Everyone, regardless of age, moves with deliberate precision. Cars are a constant concern. In the deep cold, vehicles become delicate machines. Oil thickens like syrup. Batteries lose charge quickly. Gasoline does not flow easily. So the city adapts. Cars are often left running, engines humming quietly even when parked. In residential areas, you see long cords trailing from car hoods plugged into sockets on nearby poles. These power engine block heaters designed to keep the internal fluids from freezing overnight. In the early morning, a low vibration fills the air, the sound of dozens of engines warming in unison, a kind of mechanical heartbeat. For those without access to electricity, neighbors help one another. Booster cables are passed around. A shared battery is kept warm inside and brought out to start multiple cars in turn. There is no judgment in this, only understanding. Walking outside requires its own adjustments. You learn to move more slowly, not out of caution, but to conserve warmth. Fast motion can cause sweat, and sweat is dangerous in this climate. Moisture freezes quickly, drawing heat from the body. So people walk steadily, hands inside sleeves, faces tucked down, steps sure and even. If you fall, you do not laugh. You check yourself. You stand slowly. You move on. Even breathing changes. On the coldest days, inhaling through your nose feels sharp, like glass. Some wear masks, not for illness, but to warm the air before it reaches the lungs. Others place a hand over their mouth or breathe through a layer of scarf. The air is dry, stripped of humidity, and it draws water from the body. Lips crack. Skin becomes brittle. So people apply balm, drink warm tea, and monitor their bodies closely. In this climate, you notice things. The way your shadow sharpens in the pale light. The way your breath curls and twists with each exhale. The way snow squeaks underfoot when it is truly cold, a sound unique to temperatures below -40. You begin to read these signs the way others read weather reports. You know what kind of cold it is by the way the trees sound. On some nights, when the air is still and clear, you can hear the frost itself, a faint ticking as it forms along metal rails and window panes. Inside, life moves carefully. Fires are fed regularly. Water is used sparingly, carried in from melted snow or stored barrels. Pipes are watched closely, often with a slow drip left running to prevent freezing. At night, curtains are drawn tightly, and doors are checked again. Every family has extra blankets. Every household has candles, extra batteries, an emergency kit, not out of fear, out of respect. There are things to do when it is too cold to venture far. Children read, draw, or help in the kitchen. Adults mend clothing, write letters, clean tools. Games are played quietly. Radios buzz with weather updates and local news. Windows frost over and drawings are made in the crystals. People talk. They sit near the stove. They drink tea and remember stories from winters past. There is pride in survival here, but it is not loud. It is carried in the way people prepare, in the way they share, in the way they look out for one another. Neighbors check on elders. Strangers help lift cars from snowbanks. Firewood is split for a friend who is ill. Warm soup is delivered without asking. These are not favors. They are expectations, part of the quiet code of life in this place. You come to understand that surviving the cold is not about isolation. It is about connection, to others, to the land, to the rhythm of a city that has learned to move with the weather, not against it. There is no need to challenge the cold. It cannot be beaten, but it can be lived with. And that is its own kind of strength. At night, the cold deepens. The stars sharpen in the clear air, so many and so bright they seem to tremble. The snow reflects their light, and the silence grows thick around the buildings. Inside, the last embers of the fire glow softly. A kettle hums gently. Someone stirs in bed. Someone turns a page. Someone sighs, warm beneath their blanket. The house holds steady. The city sleeps, and outside the cold waits, not as an enemy, but as an ancient companion, vast and still, and endlessly present. Chapter 8: Clothing and Winter Routines. There is an art to dressing for winter in Yakutsk. It is not rushed. It is not done without thought. In this place, where the air itself can bite and the frost finds every opening, clothing becomes more than a layer. It is a shelter, a preparation, a ritual. To dress for the outside world is to make a quiet promise to yourself that you will meet the cold with care. You begin with the first layer, thermal undergarments, soft and close to the skin. Not thick, but designed to trap warmth and wick away moisture. Wool, if possible, or synthetics that have been tested by time. These are the foundation, worn every day for months, washed by hand, dried near the stove, folded with respect. You feel the difference the moment you slip them on. A sense of readiness begins to build. Next comes the middle layer, thicker, but still flexible. A sweater knitted long ago, its fibers pulled slightly at the elbows. Pants lined with fleece, the seams stitched again and again by hands that know their value. This layer holds the heat made by your body, protecting it from the colder shell that waits above. Then the outer layer, the most important. The coat is not fashion. It is function. Heavy, padded, long enough to cover the thighs, filled with down or lined with fur. It is zipped slowly, carefully, and buttoned again at the top. The hood is pulled up. The scarf is wound tightly around the neck and lower face, covering the skin in a cocoon of breath-warmed cloth. Gloves are pulled on, sometimes two pairs, one inside the other, then pushed into the sleeves to seal the wrists. On colder days, mittens are layered over the gloves, their bulk adding extra insulation. And the boots, always the boots. High, sturdy, insulated from sole to lace. They are not new, but they are trusted. You know their weight. You know their sound on snow. In this climate, every garment carries memory. A coat passed down from a father. Mittens sewn by a grandmother, whose fingers no longer stitch. A scarf dyed with summer plants, worn each winter without fail. These are not just clothes, they are pieces of people, pieces of seasons already survived. Children learn early how to dress. Parents teach by doing. They show how to tuck in sleeves, how to wrap the scarf so that air cannot sneak in, how to check that boots are fully sealed. It becomes habit. You see it in the small ones walking to school, their movements stiff but confident. They do not complain. They understand, even if they cannot explain. The cold is a teacher, and the first lesson is always preparation. Once dressed, you step outside and feel the difference immediately. The world narrows to the space within your layers. You are aware of your breath, of the sound of your boots, of the way your eyelashes begin to freeze. But you are warm, or warm enough, and that is what matters. Daily routines unfold slowly in this weather. No one rushes. Doors are opened quickly, then shut with purpose. Vehicles are warmed for an hour before driving. People leave early to account for the extra time needed to move through snow. Children walk in lines, their coats rustling like leaves in windless air. Tasks are chosen carefully. The outdoor work is done first before the cold deepens. Firewood is brought in, split into pieces near the shed, the sound of the axe sharp and brief in the air. Water is collected, carried in metal pails that steam in the kitchen. Groceries are purchased quickly. The market is visited only when needed. Lists are made with care. Forgetting something means another trip through the cold. So people plan. They think ahead. They build their day around warmth. Inside, layers are removed in reverse order. Mittens first, then gloves. The scarf is unwound, still holding the shape of your breath. The coat is hung near the stove, boots line neatly near the door, where the ice inside them can melt and dry. The warmth of the house seeps into your limbs slowly, not all at once. You sit. You breathe. You porti. The routines continue indoors. Floors are swept. Dishes are washed in warm water from the kettle. Meals are prepared early, left to simmer through the afternoon. Children do schoolwork at the table, their sleeves rolled back, their faces flushed from the warmth. The fire is checked. The stove is fed. The windows are wiped free of frost. Every hour has its rhythm. In the afternoon, someone knits. Someone repairs a loose seam. A zipper is replaced. A button is sewn back into place. Clothing is not discarded easily here. It is repaired, reinforced, respected. A winter coat is not something bought every year. It is something maintained, something familiar. You learn its weight, its creaks, the way it bends when you move. It becomes part of you. In some homes, sewing machines still hum through the quiet hours. Patterns are drawn on old newspapers. Thread is chosen from small wooden boxes. Wool is spun by hand, dyed in a basin on the stove. Scarves are knitted for new grandchildren. Hats are made in pairs, one for a neighbor's child, one for a cousin in a nearby village. There is always someone in need, and always someone willing to make. Evenings are the softest part of the day. The fire burns low. The layers have been shed. People sit together near the stove, sharing time in the warmth they've preserved. A story is told. A book is read. Hands are rubbed with cream, cracked from the dry air. Socks are placed near the heat for morning. The coat is checked one last time. The mittens are turned inside out to dry. Everything is made ready for the next day. Outside, the temperature drops again. The air turns sharp, the kind of cold that creaks the trees and silvers the sky. But inside, the house holds. The clothing hangs nearby, clean, dry, waiting. The boots stand upright. The scarf rests folded. And you, beneath your blanket, feel the comfort of these routines. There is nothing glamorous in this. No invention. No luxury. Only steadiness. Only attention. The cold teaches that comfort is not found in abundance, but in readiness. Not in rushing, but in ritual. And in the gentle return each day to a warmth that was made by your own hands. Chapter 9. The rhythm of darkness. There is a silence that comes with darkness in Yakutsk. It is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper. A hush that fills the corners of rooms and lingers between thoughts. The kind of stillness that does not ask to be noticed, yet wraps itself around the hours and settles into your body like a second skin. Here in the far east of Siberia, where winter stretches endlessly and light appears only in careful measure, darkness becomes its own kind of season. The days are short, that much you know. But it is not just the length of the day that changes, it is the quality of the light. The sun, when it rises, does so slowly, sliding low across the southern sky, never climbing far above the horizon. It casts long shadows, not golden and warm, but faint and silvery, as if the light is unsure of itself. It touches the tops of roofs, glints briefly on frost-covered trees, then fades again before it fully settles. And then, quite soon, it is gone. Even the brightest part of the day feels dim. Pale blue light filters through the ice-rimmed windows, softened by layers of frost and heavy clouds. Lamps are turned on by mid-morning. Curtains are opened, but they do not let much in. You move through the house with the quiet understanding that the sky is resting, that the world outside has drawn inward, folded upon itself like a sleeping animal. Darkness arrives in mid-afternoon, slowly at first, then all at once. You notice it creeping into the corners of the room, brushing against the walls, deepening the shadows on the floor. It does not fall like a curtain. It seeps. And when it is fully present, it changes the feeling of the house. The lamps glow more brightly. The fire becomes the center of the room. Tea is poured more often. Voices grow softer. The day turns inward, and with it, so do you. In a place like Yakutsk, the rhythm of the dark becomes normal. It is not feared or fought against. It is learned. You measure time not by the sun's position but by the rituals you've made. The first pot of tea, the walk to the market, the stacking of firewood, the quiet hour after lunch, the long evening near the stove. These become your markers. These are the signposts of your day. Some people light candles in the windows, small flames that flicker against the frost. Others string lights around their porches, not for celebration, but for comfort. A faint glow to soften the long hours. In schools and workplaces, full-spectrum lights are used to mimic the sun, a modest shield against the heavy pull of the season. And in homes you find moments of brightness tucked into corners. A lamp over a book, a lantern by the stove, the gold of honey in a glass jar catching what little light remains. There is beauty in the dark, if you let yourself see it. The way the snow reflects even the faintest glow, giving the ground a quiet shimmer. The way your breath rises in the night air, catching the light of the moon and floating like smoke. The way silence settles so completely that you can hear the creak of trees, the shift of ice, the flutter of an owl's wings in the still air. At night, you walk slowly through the streets. The sky above is deep and full of stars. Not just scattered, but thick, a blanket of light in every direction. The cold sharpens them, makes them shimmer harder. Your footsteps sound louder on the packed snow. A dog barks once in the distance, then nothing. The street lamps glow in soft cones. The houses are dim behind thick curtains. Smoke rises into the black sky, and you breathe it in with the scent of pine and birch. Inside again, you peel off your layers slowly, letting your body remember the warmth. You sit by the fire. Someone reads aloud. A pot of soup simmers. A child draws in the corner. Her crayons faint in the low light. The cat stretches near the stove. These are the hours that are not measured, the in-between hours, the waiting hours, the hours when stories are told not from books but from memory. In many homes, winter is a time for remembering. for telling the old stories of summers past, of journeys taken, of ancestors whose names are kept alive in speech. The stories are not loud, they are not grand. They are gentle, shaped by repetition, softened by time. A boy once lost in a snowstorm, guided home by a reindeer's breath. A girl who kept her hands warm by carrying coals in a pot through the forest. A grandmother who could bake bread in a stove made of river stone. You listen. You drink tea. You wrap yourself in a blanket. And the darkness becomes a part of the room, not an intrusion, but a guest. It teaches patience. It teaches quiet. It reminds you that not everything must be hurried. Not everything must be lit. The body adjusts too. Sleep comes earlier. Meals are slower. Movements are careful. You become aware of your own pace, your own breath. The cold and dark together slow the world, and in that slowness you find something rare. Stillness. Thoughtfulness. The sense that time is not something you chase, but something you sit beside. Children grow up knowing this rhythm. They learn to wake in the dark, to eat breakfast by lamplight, to walk to school before the sun. They do not resist it. They shape themselves around it. At recess, they play under the faint light of mid-morning. At home, they help light the evening fire before the sky has turned. And at bedtime, they fall asleep with the stars already above, with snow falling silently outside their window. There is no need to fill the darkness with noise. No need to push it back. In Yakutsk, it is welcomed. Not always easily. Not always joyfully. But with understanding. The cold brings the dark. The dark brings the slow. And the slow brings room for thought, for story, for rest. Outside, the snow continues to fall. Not in great heaps, but in a slow, steady drift. It covers the steps. It piles softly on windowsills. It settles into the tracks of boots and tires, smoothing them over. And the darkness holds it all. It carries the city in its hands, gently, like something precious and waiting. And when morning comes again, not bright but softly pale, the light will return in its own quiet way. Not to end the dark, but to accompany it. To share the space. To remind you that in a place like this, time does not rush. It flows, and in that flow you are held. Chapter 10. Voices of the Elders. There are certain stories that only come with age. Not because younger people lack the words to tell them, but because those words need time to settle. In Yakutsk, the elders do not raise their voices to be heard. They speak gently, often slowly, and always with the weight of a world remembered differently. Their stories are not always long, but they are full. You find them in homes that are quiet by design. A wooden chair near the stove. A shelf of books worn smooth at the edges. A wool blanket folded over the arm of a chair. A jar of berries preserved last summer, waiting for a winter tea. The rooms feel still, but not silent. There is a presence in them, like the ticking of time not wasted, only rearranged. One morning, you are invited to sit with an elder named Galina. She is in her late 70s, her voice soft but unshaken. Her home is modest. The walls are lined with photographs, black and white portraits of people long gone, and colored prints from family gatherings decades apart. The floor is covered in rugs. The kitchen smells of firewood and jam. Her stove is lit, the flames dancing behind a small iron grate. You sit with her at the table, your hands wrapped around a cup of tea. The sugar is kept in a jar with a faded label. She offers bread and preserves, cranberries, dark and tart, mashed smooth with honey. She does not speak immediately. The room fills first with the sound of the spoon stirring the tea, with the creak of a log shifting in the fire, with the soft clatter of ceramic on wood. Then she begins, not with a grand tale, but with a memory. She remembers walking to school when she was a child, the cold just as deep then, but the clothes different. No downcoats, no chemical warmers, just layers of wool sewn at home, and boots stuffed with hay to keep the toes from freezing. She remembers the sting of wind on her cheeks, the way her scarf would freeze from her breath. She remembers holding hands with her sisters so they wouldn't slip on the ice. She says this without complaint. Only fact. It was how things were. She tells you how food was gathered through hard work. Gardens dug in the short summer. Berries picked and boiled down into jam. Root vegetables stored in earth cellars. Meat hung high to dry, safe from animals. She recalls a time when the market was smaller, when most things came from neighbors, not from trucks. Eggs traded for flour. Potatoes for butter. She says the exchanges were quiet, but they meant something. A way of keeping track of each other. Her voice lifts slightly when she speaks of festivals, of singing in the cold, cheeks flushed, candles flickering in the dark, of sharing bread and salted fish in the small community hall, of dances that went on late into the night, boots stamping on wooden floors to keep warm. These were the moments that held people together when the sky was black and the wind howled outside. Later in the day, you meet Nikolai, an old man with silver hair and hands thick with calluses. He speaks less, but when he does, you feel the care in every word. His stories are often told in pieces, a sentence here, a detail there, shared over hours. He remembers the Lena River before the bridges, when people crossed it in winter by sled and in summer by boat. He remembers catching fish with his father, the sharp silence of the ice as they drilled through it, the satisfaction of a full net. He shows you a knife he's carried since he was a boy. Its handle is worn, the blade carefully sharpened over decades. It has cut fish, carved wood, and split rope. It has never left his home. When he holds it, his fingers wrap around it as if greeting an old friend. He says little else, but in the way he moves and the quiet pride he takes in showing it to you, you understand the story without needing more words. The elders here are not guardians of great myths. They are keepers of rhythm, of memory passed through gestures, a certain way of folding a blanket, the shape of bread dough before it is set to rise, the practice of waking early to feed the stove before the house stirs, the habit of sitting by the window not to watch, but to be with the light. Their lessons are small, but they settle into the mind. A woman tells you not to pour water too fast from the kettle. It cools unevenly, she says. Let it pour slowly like the snow falling outside. A man shows you how to layer wool and cotton. Wool on the inside, cotton on the outside, he says. The wool keeps you warm. The cotton stops the wind. Another teaches you to listen for the creak in the roof after sunset. That's when the ice begins to shift, and the house speaks. He nods at the ceiling, as though listening to a song. These are not facts to be memorized. They are ways of seeing, of staying present, of making a life in a place where winter is not an interruption, but a partner. As the days pass, you notice how often people mention those who came before. A gesture repeated from a father. A phrase said the way a grandmother used to say it. A recipe unchanged. A song remembered only in the chorus. It is not nostalgia. It is continuity. A quiet thread running through generations. In the evenings, when the dark closes in again, you sit with the elders and sip warm broth or black tea. The light from the lamp flickers slightly. The fire is fed with another log. And stories return, not always in words, but in the shape of hands, in the texture of cloth, in the long pauses between thoughts. They do not speak of themselves often. They speak of others, of families, of villages that no longer exist, of roads that were once only paths, of animals long gone from the forest. They speak of change, but they do not fear it. They accept it, note it, and then return to what remains. And what remains is this: the fire, the bread, the quiet care of making each day hold its shape. A scarf folded in the same way each morning. A pot of soup stirred with the same spoon for 20 years. A coat patched for the 5th time. A chair repaired rather than replaced. A song hummed in the dark kitchen. The warmth of someone else in the next room. You begin to understand that the cold is not what defines Yakutsk. Nor is it the dark. What defines this place are the people who remember. Who endure not just with strength, but with grace. Who do not rush. Who do not waste. Who have learned the value of quiet. And as you sit with them, you feel something settle inside you. A kind of stillness. A kind of deep breath. The kind that says, this is enough. This moment, this tea, this voice across the table, it is enough. Chapter 11. The Frozen Landscape Beyond. There is a moment when the last house falls behind you. When the soft lights of the city grow faint and the sound of footsteps begins to echo wider in the empty air. You do not need a sign to tell you that you've left Yakutsk. The land tells you, the air changes, the silence deepens, and the snow which had been shaped by boots and tires and the warmth of people becomes untouched. This is the frozen wilderness beyond the city's edge. It is not far. In this part of the world, nature waits close. Just a few minutes from the last wooden fence or crumbling apartment block, the trees begin. Not tall or towering, but thin, close together, their bare trunks pressed tightly like the ribs of some vast, slumbering animal. These are larches, the trees of the Siberian taiga. In the summer, their needles are green and soft, but now they are stripped bare, their branches coated in a fine skin of frost, their forms etched white against the pale sky. The snow here is deeper. It has not been walked upon. No paths are cleared. There is no need. The few who travel this way wear wide boots or strap-on snowshoes. Their movements are slow and deliberate, carving silent trails through the quiet woods. You take a careful step forward. The snow sinks beneath your weight, softly like flour in a bowl. It clings to your boots. It resists gently, and then it lets you go. The cold here is more complete. In the city, there is always some whisper of warmth, a car idling, a chimney puffing smoke, a window glowing faintly in the dusk. But here, none of that follows. There is only the steady breath of the forest and the vast ceiling of the sky. You listen. The sound of your breath. The soft press of snow underfoot. The faint creak of branches shifting. And then, nothing. A silence so complete that it almost hums in your ears. You stop walking for a moment and simply let it surround you. The trees stand still. The sky waits. The cold does not press. It holds, patient and unmoving. Further in, the forest opens slightly. A clearing spreads wide, filled with soft, level snow. A frozen stream cuts through the middle, its shape held tight by ice, its banks lined with low bushes buried almost entirely beneath drifts. A fox passed here once. You see the prints, perfect in their symmetry, spaced evenly as if left by thought. They disappear near a stand of trees. You wonder how long ago it passed. This morning, yesterday. You will not know. The snow does not say. The wind picks up faintly, not a howl, not even a breeze, just a stirring. A soft movement that lifts a few flakes from the surface and sends them dancing like ash from a fire. The trees lean slightly. A raven caws from somewhere high above, its voice slicing through the stillness and then vanishing again. You look upward. The sky is pale, clouded, and high. There is no sun to see, only the memory of where it should be. The light comes from everywhere at once, silver and quiet, like light inside a dream. In the distance, the mountains rise faintly, softened by snow and distance. You cannot see their shape clearly, only the gentle slope of their shoulders beneath the white. They do not call to you. They simply remain, watching as they have always done. Unchanging, anchored. There are no fences here, no boundaries, only the slow curve of the land. Somewhere out there, beyond the tree line, are reindeer paths. In summer, herders move across these spaces. They live in tents lined with reindeer skin. They cook over fires made with driftwood and dry moss. In winter, they follow the herd south, toward the forests where food is more plentiful. But the land keeps their presence long after they've gone. The trails remain. The memories remain. You begin walking again, slowly. Not toward anything in particular, just forward. The cold sharpens your senses. You feel the tightness in your gloves, the shift of your scarf against your chin, the rhythm of your boots pressing and lifting. Time stretches. You forget the hour. There is no hour. There is only this step, then the next, then the long, quiet stretch of white ahead. Eventually you come to a low rise, a place where the trees pull back and the land opens wide once more. You climb gently, your feet sinking slightly with each step. At the top, you pause. Before you, the landscape unfurls like a great unbroken cloth. Snow in every direction. Forest threading through it like veins. Frozen rivers tracing lines between the hills. The wind breathes across the surface, barely felt, barely seen. And in that moment, you feel something small but strong rise inside you. Not awe, not fear. Something simpler. A kind of humility. The understanding that you are here only briefly, and that the land was here long before you came, and will remain long after you go. It asks for nothing. It gives little. But it allows you to be here, to stand, to breathe, to listen. You sit for a while on the edge of the rise, letting the stillness settle into your bones. Your breath rises in slow plumes. Your heartbeat steadies. You think of the city behind you, its lamps glowing, its fires burning, its people moving through their quiet lives. And you think of how close this place is and yet how separate. A world apart. A space where time does not count. Only snow. Only cold. Only sky. When you finally rise, the light has shifted. The pale silver has grown softer, tinged now with blue. Evening is not far. You begin the walk back, retracing your steps, following the soft path you made earlier. The snow has already begun to erase some of it. A gentle reclaiming. A reminder. As you near the edge of the forest, the trees close around you again, their shapes familiar now, their silence no longer foreign. And then at last the first house appears. A plume of smoke. A window lit golden. The sound of a dog barking softly. You step from the snowdrift onto the compact path leading toward the city. The lights grow nearer. The cold remains. But it is a different cold. A held cold. A known cold. You walk through the gate and into warmth again. Not just warmth of air, but of return. Of knowing that you have gone out into the stillness and come back again, carrying with you the hush of wide snowfields and the memory of trees that do not move. And in the quiet of the evening, as tea steams in your hands and firelight flickers on the walls, you feel that space still inside you. A part of the landscape has followed you home, and you are glad. Chapter 12. Traditions and Spiritual Beliefs. There are places in the world where tradition speaks softly, not as a ceremony to be watched or a rule to be obeyed, but as a whisper passed from one generation to the next. In Yakutsk, surrounded by frost and silence, tradition is not worn loudly. It moves beneath the surface, quiet and strong, like the river under ice. It shapes the rhythm of life here, not with commands but with memory. The people of Yakutsk come from a long line of those who have lived in deep relationship with the land. Before the cities, before the wires and roads, before the maps carried names from foreign tongues, there were people who watched the seasons with open eyes, who learned the language of animals, trees, wind, and snow. They lived not apart from the cold, but inside it. They followed reindeer herds across the frozen tundra, built their homes from logs and earth, and held the stars in their stories. Some of those stories still live today. Not in books or museums, but in small homes. In gestures. In silence. A woman places a carved wooden spoon on her shelf, not to use, but to remember. A man walks slowly around his house before the new year begins, whispering thanks to the corners. A child is told not to whistle at night, not because it is rude, but because it might call something that should stay quiet. The Saka people, native to this region, have carried their beliefs through centuries of change. They believe in a world of spirits, some that protect, others that must be respected from a distance. Nature is alive in these stories. The wind is not just wind, it is a breath, a voice. The trees do not simply stand, they witness. The river remembers, the fire listens. In many homes, these old beliefs are woven into the fabric of daily life, not as superstition, not as fear, but as recognition. That the world is larger than what can be seen. That there are ways of knowing that go beyond explanation. A small bundle of herbs hangs near the door. A quiet blessing is said before lighting the stove. An offering is placed on a windowsill. Bread, a drop of milk, a whisper of thanks. Just in case. Just to be sure. You begin to notice how people pause before speaking of certain places. A bend in the river. A grove of trees that no longer stands. A hill where nothing grows. They do not explain. They do not need to. Their silence is explanation enough. These are places where the land speaks more loudly, where stories once happened, where something remains. There are celebrations too, moments when the traditions rise up more clearly, held in song and food and movement. In late June, when the days grow long and the sun does not set, the Saka celebrate Isiak, a festival of renewal, light, and life. It is held far from the freezing grip of winter, but its memory lingers all year. During Isiak, people gather in open fields, dressed in traditional clothes, and share food, drink, and dance. They greet the sun with open hands. They remember their ancestors with words and fire. They pass around kumis, fermented maize milk, and sing the Alanko, an epic song that tells of gods, heroes, and the shaping of the world. In winter, the festivals are quieter, more inward. The cold draws people together around the hearth. Meals are shared. Stories are told in low voices. Small rituals mark the passage of the year, the turning of seasons, the remembering of the dead, the hope for the sun's return. These moments are not always planned. Sometimes they arise when needed. A candle is lit for someone far away. A photograph is placed on the table. A name is spoken into the dark. In churches, the bells ring through the frost. Russian Orthodoxy came to Yakutsk long ago, and it lives here still, shaped by the land it met. Wooden chapels stand quietly at the edges of towns. Their roofs are steep to shed snow. Inside, the icons glow with the warmth of candles. Worshippers arrive wrapped in coats and scarves. They cross themselves with gloved hands. Their breath rises in the cold air as they sing. For some, faith is found in the old prayers and sacred texts. For others, it remains in the forest, in the wind that moves through the larch trees, in the silence of snow falling at night. These beliefs do not argue with each other. They live side by side. One hand lights the incense. The other ties a red thread around a wrist. Both hands lift the bread to the table. The land does not ask which you believe. It only asks that you move with respect. You walk one day with an older woman who speaks of the old spirits. She does not call herself religious. She says her faith is in what she has seen, the way the fire behaves when something is wrong, the dreams that come with warnings, the animals that appear before change. She says these things quietly, but with certainty. She does not need you to believe her. She simply knows. She points to a birch tree, bare and pale. She says it is a kind tree, one that listens. She touches its bark with her fingers, just for a moment. A greeting, a recognition. Later, in the quiet of your room, you find yourself lighting a candle not out of habit, but out of something else. A way of marking the evening, of creating a small warmth in the corner, of saying, I am here, and I remember. You begin to understand that belief in Yakutsk is not always about gods or doctrine. It is about relationship, to land, to season, to those who came before. It is about living in a place where life is shaped not by control, but by attention, where survival depends not only on preparation, but on humility, where meaning is found in the way you walk through snow, in the way you share bread, in the way you speak a name into the wind. As you fall asleep that night, you feel the presence of the stories you've heard. They do not demand your agreement. They only offer themselves like a cup of tea placed in front of you, warm and waiting. The wind moves outside. The trees shift slightly. The house creaks in the frost. And somewhere far away, or perhaps very near, the old voices continue to speak, quiet and steady, shaping the cold night with memory. Chapter 13. A Night in Yakutsk. There is a moment, just after dusk, when Yakutsk seems to take a breath. The noise of the day fades, though it was never loud to begin with. The last of the footsteps grows softer. The shops close their doors, pulling down shutters with quiet finality. The chimneys send out their final bursts of smoke for the evening. One by one, the windows begin to glow. Night comes early in winter, and it comes without drama. There is no fiery sunset, no long golden hour. The light fades like the end of a sentence. The sky grows heavy, deepening to a soft, quiet gray, and then to blue, and finally to black. The stars arrive early. Not one at a time, but all at once, spilling across the sky in broad fields. It takes you by surprise how many there are, how still they seem. They do not blink. They do not move. They wait. You walk slowly through the snow-covered streets, your boots pressing softly into the surface. The air is colder than it was earlier, and you feel it through your scarf, along your cheeks, at the edges of your sleeves. It is a dry cold. It bites only if you stop moving. And so, you walk. The streetlights shine with a muted glow, their halos softened by frost. The snow catches their light and throws it back upward, until even the shadows feel faintly illuminated. The buildings around you are mostly dark, but every now and then, a curtain parts slightly, revealing a warm room, a figure moving, a child drawing at a kitchen table, a kettle steaming on a stove. Yakutsk at night is not a city that demands attention. It rests. It exhales. People gather behind their walls where the warmth is steady and the fire has been fed for the last time that day. Outside, the world becomes a sculpture of frost and silence. You pass the market square. Empty now, the stalls closed, the crates covered with tarps. The wooden frames creak softly in the cold. No one lingers here. The snow has been swept clean by the wind, and the prints from morning shoppers have been softened and filled. In the corner, a bench waits beneath a street lamp. No one sits there tonight. It is a place remembered, not used. A dog crosses your path, silent and quick, its fur thick and dusted with snow. It moves without hesitation, without fear. It knows the city better than you do. It disappears into a side alley, and the stillness returns. You turn a corner and find yourself near the river. Helena lies frozen beneath a wide sheet of snow, unmoving and unreadable. Its surface stretches out like a pale road, empty and waiting. No boats, no fishermen, no movement. Only the long breath of winter resting across the ice. On the far bank, the forest rises, dark and tall. It watches the city, unchanged, unseen by most. But you see it now, and it sees you. The sound of the city is faint here. A distant engine, a door closing, a radio playing softly from an upstairs window, and beneath it all, the rhythm of your footsteps, your own breath. The snow is shifting as it falls again, lightly, from a sky that never looks angry, only tired. You head back toward the center of town, your face tingling slightly, your scarf damp with breath. The lights grow closer. The warmth, imagined at first, begins to feel real again. Inside, the homes of Yakutsk hold the night gently. Rooms are lit with quiet lamps. Tea is poured into glasses that reflect the firelight. A grandmother knits slowly by the stove. A child curls beneath a blanket, watching the soft flicker of a candle. Conversations drift between rooms, never rising, never rushed. You're invited into one of these homes, and you step inside slowly, the heat brushing against your skin like a gentle hand. Your boots are removed, your coat hung carefully. The floor is warm beneath your socks. Someone hands you a mug of hot broth, thick and salty, comforting in its simplicity. You sit at the kitchen table. A pot simmers on the stove, filling the room with the scent of onions and barley. The wallpaper is faded, and the table is scratched. But everything feels chosen, lived in, real. A man tells a story in a low voice, speaking mostly in Saka, then offering a few words in Russian for clarity. It is a story of his youth, of riding horses across the frozen steppe, of sleeping beside a fire with the stars overhead. He does not embellish. He speaks as though these things still live just outside the door. Someone else laughs gently, remembering a similar night. And you sit quietly, holding your mug, letting the warmth from it rise into your face. Later, as the fire burns lower, a small song is sung. Not loudly, not for performance. A lullaby, perhaps, or an old folk tune. You do not understand the words, but the melody carries something older than language. You feel it in your chest, in your breath. It is a sound that belongs to winter. The children are sent to bed. They climb into their thick blankets, wool tucked tightly around their shoulders. The rooms grow quieter still. The adults speak softly, then fall silent altogether. Someone checks the stove one last time. The lamp is turned low. Outside the window, the snow continues to fall. Thin flakes drift past the glass, dancing slowly in the windless dark. The city sleeps. Not all at once, but gently, gradually, like embers fading in a firebox. You lie down under a heavy blanket. Your body is tired but not worn. Your thoughts are slow. Outside, the cold deepens and the stars remain. The silence becomes complete. In the distance, a single window glows. Perhaps someone is still awake, writing a letter, stirring a pot, feeding a fire. But soon even that light will go out, and Yakutsk will rest, wrapped in snow, blanketed by stillness, held gently in the hand of night. Chapter 14. The Silence of Deep Winter. There is a point in the winter when the cold no longer deepens but settles. It no longer arrives. It simply remains. This is not the beginning of the season, when the first frost still feels like a new arrival. And it is not yet the thaw, when the snow begins to shift and the light grows longer. This is the middle, the pause, the deep winter. In Yakutsk, it is both the quietest and the most enduring time of year. The cold no longer surprises anyone. It has become part of the air you breathe, part of the rhythm of every motion. You no longer ask how cold it is. You already know. Your breath tells you. Your fingers know before your gloves go on. Your boots creak in a way that says it is -40, maybe more. You no longer count the hours of daylight because you are no longer waiting for them to return. They will come when they are ready. Until then, the darkness is simply accepted. The snow no longer falls in thick drifts or swirling storms. It drifts down in light, dry layers. It piles soundlessly on rooftops and settles into corners. It builds without effort. Each morning it is there, just a little deeper than the night before. A familiar weight. The city quiets itself in this time. Shops open late and close early. The streets are not empty, but they are slower. Cars move with caution, engines humming softly like animals conserving their energy. Footsteps are fewer. Voices, when heard, are hushed. You walk through the city as if through a dream. The snow underfoot is so packed that it no longer crunches. It simply accepts your weight and holds it. The air is so dry that your breath does not rise. It vanishes. There is no wind, no birdsong, no rustle of leaves. The silence is total. But it is not a silence of emptiness. It is a silence of presence. It is the sound of the land holding still, of people living quietly, of heat building slowly in every stove, in every kettle, in every hand placed gently on a teacup. Inside, homes become even more precious. The fire is tended with extra care. The stack of wood beside the door is watched more closely. Blankets are folded and used again. Tea is brewed with stronger leaves. Conversations are shorter, not because there is less to say, but because the words that matter can be said with fewer syllables. You visit an old friend on one such day. The window is covered in thick frost, and the curtain is drawn aside only slightly to let in the pale glow of midday. She greets you without a word, only a nod, and motions you toward the warmth. A pot simmers on the stove, filled with barley and root vegetables. The air smells of cabbage and garlic, and the familiar richness of food made slowly. You remove your coat layer by layer. Your boots are placed by the stove, where the soles can dry. You sit quietly, your hands wrapped around a mug already waiting for you. There is no need to speak right away. The warmth fills the silence. Later, she tells you stories from a winter long ago. A train that arrived late. A neighbor who lost his voice from the cold and never found it again. A dog who disappeared into the forest and came back with a pack of strays. She speaks slowly, pausing often, not because she forgets, but because remembering in this season feels like breathing. Slow, steady, necessary. At the window, the frost begins to grow in delicate shapes. Feathers almost. Or branches. The glass becomes a painting, and you watch as the outside world blurs behind it. The trees are still. The snow has not moved. A child walks past, wrapped so fully that only the tops of their boots are visible. Even the dogs bark less in deep winter. They curl into tighter circles. They rest more. Their movements are careful, their energy reserved. Cats sleep near stoves. Children play indoors. Adults pass time with mending, sorting, cleaning, reading, waiting. You begin to understand that winter is not something to be endured here. It is something to move within. It is the season that strips everything to its essentials. Movement slows. Tasks simplify. The layers of sound and distraction fall away, and what remains is honest. A fire, a meal, a pair of hands, a song. One night, you walk alone down a narrow street where the lights are low and the snow falls so softly you do not feel it. You stop beneath a tree that has stood for 100 years. Its branches are bare, its bark dry and cracked, its roots hidden beneath layers of ice. And yet it stands, tall, without effort. You stand with it. For a long time. There is no sound, no movement, Only the deep hum of a city breathing slowly beneath a sky thick with stars, and something in you settles. Later, you return home. Your coat is cold to the touch. Your scarf stiff with frost. But your heart is calm. The stove glows. The kettle sings. And the silence, though deep, no longer feels vast. It feels close. Familiar. Like the inside of a thought. You sleep deeply that night, the blanket tucked up to your chin, the darkness outside holding you like a slow wave. And when you dream of nothing loud or bright, only snow falling through branches, and the feeling of your boots finding their way one quiet step at a time. Chapter 15. Farewell from the Edge of the World. There is a kind of farewell that doesn't come with goodbyes. It comes quietly, like the way light slips across snow just before the sun disappears. It doesn't ask for attention, it simply arrives. And in the city of Yakutsk, when you prepare to leave, it's not marked with fanfare or final words. It's a quiet shift, a soft recognition, a last breath drawn in cold air that you know you won't taste again for some time. The morning you leave is like many before it. The air outside your window is still, the glass painted with frost, the sky a deep shade of pale gray. A slow light spreads across the horizon, though the sun remains hidden behind layers of winter clouds. In the room, the stove burns gently. The kettle simmers. The walls hold the warmth you've grown used to. Your bag is packed with care. Not much needs to be taken. Just a few items. A scarf, now shaped by the curve of your shoulders. A notebook with pages warped slightly from the heat of the stove. A few berries dried and tucked into paper. And something quieter, a way of breathing that has changed. A new understanding of silence, of stillness, of waiting. The house moves gently around you. Someone adds wood to the fire. A mug is placed on the table. A coat is lifted from a hook. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is spoken with urgency. The people here know how to part without making a performance of it. They know that time will carry everyone forward and the land will remember. When you step outside, the cold meets you as it always has. Fully. Without apology. It wraps itself around your legs, presses into your gloves, curls beneath the edge of your hat. But it no longer startles. It feels familiar now, like something you've lived beside rather than avoided. The cold has become a rhythm, something to meet, to notice, and then move with. The streets are quiet, as expected. A few figures move along the sidewalks, wrapped in wool and fur, their breath marking the space between each step. You nod to one as you pass. She nods back. No words are needed, just acknowledgement. You make your way toward the edge of town. Past the frozen market stalls, past the narrow alleys where dogs curl beside doors, past the quiet shops, their windows fogged with breath and warmth. The trees stand as they always have, bare but not lifeless. The snow falls lightly, drifting in slow spirals from a sky that doesn't rush. You reach the spot where the buildings thin and the forest begins again. You pause. Ahead, the wide landscape waits. The deep snow. The frozen river. The hills that roll gently beneath a blanket of white. It is not the world you are returning to, but it remains. It will be here, and so you turn. You head back, for now, toward the place where your journey will carry you beyond this city. Toward a road, an airport, a flight, all the things that move faster than this land ever will. You carry little, but you carry enough. In the cabin where you wait, the walls are made of wood. The air smells faintly of ash and wool. A man drinks tea from a steel thermos. A child curls beside her mother, a book open on her knees. The silence is not empty. It is complete. You look out the window once more, and Yakutsk lies quietly behind you. A city wrapped in frost. A place that asks nothing of you except that you notice it. That you slow down long enough to hear how it breathes. That you move carefully, that you keep warm, that you listen. You think of the people. Of the hands that passed you bread. Of the voices that shared their stories. Of the eyes behind scarves that met yours without hurry. You think of the nights filled with stars. The forests that whispered without sound. The firelight that painted shadows on every wall. You think of stillness, not as something lifeless, but as something full. Something with its own quiet language. And as you lift your bag, as the engines start and the cold wind rushes once more past the window, you do not feel as though you are leaving something behind. You feel as though something has been placed inside you, and you carry it with you, into the sky, into the silence of memory, into the warmth that will always remind you of a city at winter's edge,